What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back and welcome to the F4 Phantom. Finally, an overdue test drive of the F4 with my full force feedback stick base FFBeast. For those of you that haven't seen it before, please check it out in the video description. The F4 has been designed to fly with force feedback from the get-go by heatblur, and quite frankly, this is exactly the sort of aircraft, as we run through the startup procedure here, this is exactly the sort of aircraft that not just benefits from a full force feedback stick, but in my opinion, it is absolutely crucial in order to be able to A, fly the F4 realistically, and B, be able to understand exactly what is happening to the aircraft and therefore get the maximum out of it.
Yes, sir. We are connected right.
So as we're starting up the F4 here, we are going to go out for a little test drive overhead Nellis.
And done.
Overhead Nellis Air Force Base. We'll do a number of maneuvers, a number of air show maneuvers. I'll talk you through the flight control system of the F4, how it works, what it's comprised of, and exactly how it is to fly with force feedback currently. Although I am still tuning the force feedback in the F4, I'm still haven't got quite to that level where I believe it is exactly representative of real life in some certain situations. However, it is about 99% better than anything with a regular spring-loaded stick, and it really is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I do want to mention straight from the beginning that the F4 has never been an aircraft that I have really been aspiring to fly or have ever been looking forward to. And the only reason I really ever got the F4 is just because I saw just the incredible amount of detail and some of the really cool innovative features that heatblur has introduced with this module, and I really wanted to check them out. So like I say, the F4 was never really on my list, and for me in DCS, I don't really buy aircraft specifically for their capabilities of what they can do. I buy them based and basically on whether or not I actually want to fly them as an aircraft first, and then all the combat really comes after that. Because let's put it this way, if the airplane isn't fun or interesting to fly, then I really don't care about its capabilities. I don't really care what it brings to the battlefield. I need to enjoy the stick and rudder. I need to enjoy flying the airplane, taking off, landing, maneuvering, doing all that cool stuff. And then if that's fun, then I'm interested in shooting some guns and dropping bombs and firing rockets, etc. So the F4 is kind of one of those airplanes I've always kind of been not that really keen on. I didn't really care about the F4 all that much. But since heatblur came out and said that they have designed the F4 specifically with force feedback in mind, I thought, well, you know, great opportunity to jump in the F4 finally and check it out. So as we're starting up the F4 now, I'll just tell you a little bit about the flight control system. If you want to skip straight through to the takeoff, feel free to do so. I'll leave the time codes in the description, I think. So if you don't want to hear me give you a little bit of an overview of the flight control system here, then feel free to just skip right ahead.
How about them generators? I can start the alignment. Copy that.
And as we tell Jester here to get the alignment going.
All right. What alignment do you want? You got it. Stored heading it is.
So the flight control system in the F4 consists of the control stick being linked to the control surfaces via mechanical linkages, which are hydraulically boosted. Now, there are artificial systems to increase or decrease the amount of force going through the stick in the F4, and those comprise of bob weights and springs to increase the force feedback effectively, or the amount of force that the pilot is experiencing when pulling back on the stick, and the stick force per G increases as speed increases. Now, at low or subsonic speed, you're looking at about 3 or 4 pounds per G, so that means at 1 G, about 3 pounds, maybe up to about 20 pounds at 6 G, and at supersonic high-speed flights, 3 times the amount. So at 6 G, you might be looking at 60 pounds. So it goes without saying that, you know, force feedback is absolutely crucial here, that you obviously can't replicate that with a regular center spring-loaded stick. Now, to counteract the springs and bob weights, there's a bellows system which artificially creates the feel of speed changes to the control surfaces. Now, as we do the flight control surfaces check, actually you'll see as we move the rudder moves exactly as you'd expect. But something interesting happens here as we move the stick. The stick doesn't move one-to-one with my stick, and that's because heatblur has actually disconnected you in the pitch axis on the ground in the F4. Now we move the ailerons, they move exactly...
Alignment completed. Go primary sync now. Alright, ready to
Right, it's a little too early, Jester. So we've moved the ailerons. We moved the ailerons and they moved exactly as you'd expect, but now with the flaps down, you see us move the ailerons. The rudder moves as well. So this is due to the ARI, or Aileron Rudder Interconnect System. That is designed in the F4 for low-speed flight, basically when the flaps are down, landing configuration. You don't want to induce any adverse yaw, which is what can happen if you just use ailerons to roll the aircraft. You might have the unwanted effect of the other wing stalling and rolling the aircraft in the opposite direction to where you are intending to roll, and that can cause a whole lot of problems, including you stalling, crashing into the ground. So that's why the aileron rudder interconnect system is there. However, with flaps up, low speed flight, you got to be super careful in the F4.
Wheel chocks out. Chocks out. You're all set, sir. Have a safe flight. Disconnect.
You got to be super careful in the F4 at high alpha, because if you've got the flaps up, there is a chance that you might roll, if you roll the aircraft using ailerons, which you shouldn't in the F4, it's critical that you use rudder to roll, because if you use ailerons on their own without the aileron rudder interconnect system, there is a high chance of that adverse yaw happening in the aircraft, yawing and rolling, or rather rolling in the opposite direction, which like I say, can cause a whole host of problems. Now, there is a stab augmentation system in the F4. It counteracts motion, provides a smoother ride, and dampens out like smaller aircraft displacements.
Alright, let's kick some ass.
Hell yeah, Jester. Now, some pilots actually turn off the roll augmentation channel. You see it's there, pitch, roll, and yaw. I've turned all of them on for now, and that's what I do for takeoff and landing. However, for maneuvering, I actually switch the roll channel off, and I'll tell you about that as we take off. And you'll see why that is, because you don't want, at high alpha, you really do not want that system to be augmenting you, because you don't want to have any of the aileron input at high alpha, because like I said before, it can cause instability.
Alright, tell me, are we going downtown on this?
The aircraft can actually go in the opposite direction from what you're intending. Obviously, when you're doing a high alpha pass at an air show, or maneuvering super low speed, dogfighting somebody, you don't want the aircraft to all of a sudden roll into, or do some small rolls into you know, where you're not expecting. That's why you want to use rudder, and you disconnect the roll channel of the stab aug system. So I do think I have managed to tune the F4 pretty well in terms of force feedback. Now, it is still a work in progress for me. I still think I need to increase the stick force per G. I definitely do have that feeling of increased stick forces as the speed increases, but not quite as much in terms of when pulling back and increasing the G loading on the aircraft for a certain speed regime. So as we close the canopy here, I'll transfer you onto Command T sitting in the cockpit, and enjoy the ride. Alright, here we are.
Canopy down and locked, lights out, and stripes aligned.
Landing light is on, 90 skid is on, speedo heat is on, master caution, no master cautions here, so we can cancel the master caution. Clear left. Now, one thing with full force feedback is that on the ground, the heatblur team has decided that they will replicate the stick movement as it would happen in the real aircraft with 5-pound bob weights, which would be a slow return back to neutral. But as you can see, that's not something that we can actually model with. At least I'm not aware of it anyway at the moment. I've tried to replicate it as close as I can, but unfortunately that's just something that's you know, that doesn't represent the real aircraft. My stick returns back to neutral a little bit quicker. Anyway, nonetheless, we are fully set for takeoff. Landing light is on, everything's good. We've got the flaps, we've got the trim, and we are good to go. So we are on the brakes. Let's set 85. Set. Looking good. of the brakes ready now. Full burner.
Engine's good. Airspeed off the peg. 80 knots.
Pulling back.
100 knots.
And we'll do a low transition. Gears up.
Gears moving.
Flaps are up. Now we'll keep it nice and low.
Flaps up.
As the airspeed increases, as the aircraft gets faster, it does become more twitchy. That is exactly the way it is in real life. Flight controls get heavier. There we are, and one thing you'll notice straight away with me working with this aircraft, where you need to manhandle it, and I bang the stick in the opposite direction to stop the roll accurately, because if I don't, if I just let it roll itself, it's got a whole amount of residual roll, and it's not particularly stable in the roll axis at all. So one of the things that real pilots do is they actually disengage the roll augmentation for the stability, and that improves, especially high alpha. It doesn't roll the aircraft to counteract small movements, and therefore it doesn't create adverse yaw, and potentially actually even let the aircraft
5 degrees, 2 miles, 1,800.
roll in the opposite direction at very high AOA. So we'll go inverted here, and it's got pretty good, nice feel inverted. The aircraft in general is very lethargic. It is extremely slow to respond. Sometimes you get these compressor stalls, but if you bang this stick in the opposite direction, you can get it to be pretty aggressive. Now, if you don't want to lose any energy, you actually need to be between 10 and 12 AOA, which is very low. That means your turning radius is going to be super high, but you're not going to lose energy, and there is excess thrust there all the time. One thing I noticed when I started flying this plane straight away, I was used to obviously flying something like the F-18, so hands-free, and generally thought that you could just do whatever you like with it, and realized that I was running out of energy extremely quickly. So as we do a slow roll
right
here,
5, 1 mile, 3,000.
a little bit of rudder here at the end, and what I'll do is I'll demonstrate the slow capabilities, the slow high alpha capabilities of the Phantom, something that is very interesting and extremely engaging as a pilot, because what you got to watch out for is that at high alpha, as you're approaching, you'll be stalling the airplane at 28 to 30 AOA, but above 14 AOA you need to use rudder, and at high AOA before the stall you can only use rudder, otherwise the airplane will actually roll in the opposite direction of what you've intended. So we're going to do a high alpha barrel to kill the energy. Now looking at the AOA indicator here, which by the way I feel like it should be closer to the HUD. Now at this point we're using rudder, and we'll get the speed brake using a little bit of rudder. That's it, just rolling the aircraft with rudder. And this is where having roll augmentation off is really helpful. Speed brake's coming back in. Now using rudder only. Got to be very careful. If I use roll now at this regime, the aircraft will probably stall and go in the opposite direction to what I want. So I'm going to try and get that VSI closer to 0. So we're looking for about 145. There we go. That's a little bit low. Just gonna get it. There we go. VSI is on 0. Looking good. Looking good. Looking good. Everything is shaking violently. This airplane. VSI is on 0. This is really nice here, but I'm trying to not use roll, but it's very difficult as a pilot, of course. You always think that you need to control roll with ailerons, and of course in the F4 that's going to kill you if you're at very high alpha, and obviously for dogfighting as well. Now one thing as well here, we're only at 300 knots. Now if you're not careful, if you just bang the stick back, you will just immediately stall the airplane. It's not going to go anywhere. But if you're gentle with it, you've got excess thrust, and you can really power through out of almost anything, but you just have to be extremely careful. Now in the real aircraft, I think the stick forces at high speed, they really do increase like 3 times fold, and the more you pull back, the more the springs and the bob weights act against you. So you're looking at 60 pounds of pressure, just as you're in supersonic regime, whereas subsonic about
degrees, 1 mile, 3,000.
3 times less than that. It's only about 20 pounds. Now we're going to pull up feeling that pressure in the stick is something that you can only get with force feedback, of course. And I don't understand how you can fly this airplane with force feedback, because it really talks to you. I can't imagine flying it without force feedback at all. Now, it's very easy to go straight up into the vertical, because we've got this beautiful dot here in the middle of our attitude indicator. And the reason I'm going to do this is going to demonstrate to you some of the stall capabilities, characteristics of this airplane. It's passing through 25,000 feet, and I don't want Jester to eject prematurely, which he can do. So you can get this aircraft in a regular spin. I cannot get it into a regular upright spin, but I can get it into an inverted spin. So full forward stick now, and full left rudder. Now you'll see it's a little bit hesitant, everything is shaking, but it will go slowly get into an inverted spin. Now the reason we're so high is, again, I don't want Jester to eject, so hopefully he doesn't eject. So as you can tell there, we are now in a nice inverted spin, but what will happen if I just increase the amount of outspin aileron like so, we can now transition this into a full flat spin, inverted flat spin in the F4. Now look what happens if I center the stick now. I'll center the stick, I'll keep the rudder input, and if I let go of the stick, it's pinned. This is something you can only do with force feedback. It is absolutely pinned there. I actually need to center the controls, opposite rudder, and there we go. Ah, god damn it, Jester. What? You couldn't even survive until 15,000 feet, man. Somebody needs to tell me how I can make Jester not eject. You know, especially if I'm up high. I mean, there's got to be a button to say Jester never eject, because this is really annoying. Alright, so we pick up the action now again in a fully serviceable Jestered F4, and we'll just do a couple of more maneuvers and then we'll bring it into land. And I just want to talk a little bit about what I think about the F4 now. If I'm honest, when I started flying it, I really thought this thing is an absolute pig. And it really is a pig. This is not a pilot's aircraft. This thing is just, oh my god, it is lethargic, wallows around. It requires just so much from the pilot. It is so not carefree. I mean, there we go, we're getting compressor stalls as well. However, it's really grown on me, because it really demands you to be exceptionally good at flying the airplane. It really demands incredible stick and rudder skills to get the most out of it. You really need to be exceptionally careful with that AOA. That AOA indicator is in the wrong place. It should be right beside the HUD, because that is your life in this airplane. Literally everything depends on it. How it flies depends on it. How it handles depends on it. Whether or not your adverse yaw is going to kill you or not depends on it. Whether or not you can use aileron or not use aileron depends on it. Literally everything in this airplane depends on it. Now, to get precise controls out of it, like say for example in a 4-point roll, you know, again, you need to manhandle it. You really need to bang the stick in the opposite direction. And when I first started flying it and I wasn't doing that, I was like, man, this thing absolutely sucks. It's just so lethargic and just feels like a dump truck. You know, put me into any MiG literally ever instead of this airplane. But now I kind of realize that, you know what? Yes, it is an absolute pig to fly. But if you fly it well, it is so rewarding and it is so cool. It's, you know, it really demands, you know, great stick and rudder skills, which is something that the F-16, F-18, and all these 4th gen jets and the Mirage 2000, you can put a monkey in them and it'll fly them to like 90% of their capability. Whereas this airplane, to fly it to even its, you know, 65% of its capability, you need to be, you know, a really good pilot and an absolutely exceptional one to be able to fly it up to, you know, 100%, because this thing is phenomenal. The force feedback is really what absolutely transforms this jet, because you feel everything, and the stick forces increases, the speed increases. It's lower forces in terms of ailerons compared to pitch and your elevator feel. And again, we're getting these compressor stalls. One day I will learn to fly it without stalling the engine, but Anyway, for my very limited experience, this is what I know for now. We'll get the speed brake out. We'll slow down below 300 knots so the gear can come down now. Gear's traveling. And as I trim back now, you'll see the stick just moves in my hand, and I get that perfect feedback to tell me exactly where I am in that regime and how far the stick is moving back.
And gear, flaps, pressure, warning lights, anti-skid.
Okay, the flaps are now down less than 280 knots. So what we'll do is, and this thing is a pig to land as well. This is one of the things I don't like about this airplane, really, I can't get used to, is just getting a nice landing. It's just not possible. Literally, even in the F-18, which is kind of, let's say, designed to land hard, you can still finesse it and really get a nice touchdown if you really wanted to. Despite what some people might tell you is, you know, that it's the wrong way to land. I think some of the Canadians will disagree with you. Some of the Finns will disagree with you too. So you can finesse an F-18, but there's just no bloody way you can finesse this airplane. I'm keeping the speed high on purpose, by the way, just to let you know. But I am going to start bleeding it off as we get closer.
500.
Trim out a little bit. We're a little bit high on speed. That's fine. I want to be high on speed in the turn.
300.
I don't like putting the seat up in this airplane. Oh, I've overshot a little bit. I don't like putting the seat up in this airplane. What I do instead is I actually just lean over a little bit. Now we're gonna
100.
try and get that speed. Get a little bit of thrust in just to cushion it a little bit. No, still floating down the run. Oh, there we go. That's actually kind of a nice touchdown. See if we can keep the nose off the ground for a little bit. That's actually kind of a nice touchdown that I had. I've never really managed to get a super nice touchdown in this airplane. Alright, we'll slow it down without the chute now. Should have enough.
Smooth landing, nice.
Thanks, Jester. Appreciate it. It actually genuinely is, I think, super difficult to get like a smoothish landing in this airplane. It's just not that nice, you know. To land it, and in real life too, you always see them smash it in, and quite frankly, I can kind of understand why that is, because it's just a bit of a pig. The landing regime is something I just super dislike in this airplane. Just doesn't feel nice. Go taxi light. What else can we do? Let's go pitot heat off. Anti-skid is off. Perfect. And we'll open up the canopy. I think that disarms the ejection seat. I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me. And it's bloody loud as well, so I do apologize about the noise. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my little overview of flying the F-4 Phantom with force feedback. I mean, I can't imagine flying it without force feedback. I think that would be absolutely crazy, personally. I think the way, you know, obviously, I understand not everybody can afford a force feedback stick, so, you know, there's that. And apparently the way heatblur is tuned non-force feedback sticks is completely different and not particularly good from what I've seen. So I think the F-4 Phantom really does need force feedback. Although, like I say, I'm still playing around with the settings. I still definitely have not managed to replicate exactly the way the real thing feels, because I think the stick per G needs to increase, you know, as you pull back and with the springs. But in my version, yeah, the stick forces do increase with speed, but not necessarily with G, which I would like to tune one day. Actually, let's just get the lights off here, so taxi lights off, so we don't blind the cabin crew, the ground crew, and we'll come in here. But I have to say, you know what, I'm still kind of debating whether or not I should fly the F-4. In general, like whether I should devote a lot of time to it. It's kind of grown on me. I really hated it initially. I really genuinely just hated the F-4 when I started flying it. But now I have to say, it's actually kind of cool. It's kind of badass. It's big and it's heavy and it's, you know, it's not particularly nice. But on the other hand, it's pretty cool when you manhandle it, getting the most out of it. And it feels like a proper mechanical flying machine that requires proper stick and rudder, and you know, absolutely requires you to be a pretty decent pilot, I think, to get the most out of it. So that's my thoughts on the F-4 for now. I think heatblur has done a phenomenal job overall. It's just that, you know, me tuning the force feedback, I think I could get it a little bit better. I'm sure in the future I'll figure out how to increase the that feel of the stick force per G. somehow. I'm sure I'll get there, but for now I'm still really unbelievably happy with the way this thing feels. Definitely one of the most engaging, one of the most interesting aircraft to fly with force feedback in DCS world. So if you've got any questions, please comment down below. I'll try my very best to answer them, but otherwise I'll catch you in the next video. Adios.